Hey everybody, welcome back, Buckaroos. This is the fifth in a series about hot clocks and also categories. And this time we're going to be doing a CHR the way I would do it. Again, not any right way or a wrong way, because if your circumstances are such, you can do it any way you want and it will be the right way if it fits the circumstances. And that's what a lot of this course is. You don't want to just cut and paste, that type of thing. So I'm going to do a not so current radio station. I'm going to show you what I would do in today's environment, and I'll give you all the reasons why I would do it this way. So let's get to it. This is going to be the last lesson from Florida before we head home. We're going to head home in a few days. I'll be back in the full studio, which would be nice too, as opposed to doing this on an iPhone, oddly enough. Yeah, and given that it's different, I also wanted to talk on this lesson about something that is different. I think we actually learn mostly from our mistakes and also by being thrown into situations that are not normal and you go, wow, I got to adapt. When you do that, you learn things and you also see things where it makes you question what you always thought was correct. And, and then that turns into, man, what is the actual real answer? And I'm going to run through something about CHR on this lesson, and we're going to build a different kind of CHR radio station. Hopefully it will open your eyes to another way of doing things. It's not the right way. It's not the perfect way. It's not, something that you would do in every single situation. It definitely is something that you can do in some situations, maybe a lot of them. I don't really know. I just know that in doing it, it worked enormously well. I happened to be in a situation where I was programming a CHR in Montreal, and Montreal, if it was in the United States, would be market number 12. Take a look at this. Now let me insert Montreal into here. Yeah, bigger than San Francisco, bigger than Seattle, bigger than San Diego, bigger than a ton of radio station markets. And there's a lot of radio stations in the market of Montreal, and there's a lot of money, and there's a lot of people, obviously. So, most things that apply to other markets certainly applied here. But I was in a situation where I could not play the currents as fast as one would normally play currents on a CHR. I got thrown into the situation in Montreal where I could not do the hour and a quarter. There was just no physical way. The rules of programming by the government, came into play, and that went out the window. So not being able to do that, I thought about it a while and how am I going to do this? Well, I'm going to have to give the illusion of being a top 40 radio station, with slower rotations. I mean, that was just point blank. I had to do that. There was no other way around it. But I had done AC, programmed hot AC, programmed AC, programmed upper end AC, in addition to, CHR for ages and ages. So I had a different frame of reference from the CHR already with the AC. And I decided to basically sort of emulate hot AC, somewhere between hot AC and AC, and to try to fit the rules. So I came up with 5-hour rotations. The same rotations as WLTW today, an AC radio station, although one could make a good case that it's a hot AC radio station, just not as current, but they definitely have tempo. It's a great radio station, but they're doing 5-hour rotations. So, that's what I did. But along with that, I laid in all of the CHR stuff that one would ever do. There were jingles. The production was super hot. The jocks on the air, they were doing CHR and high personality CHR. They were doing some really funny, interesting, clever stuff. And it was really careful about the gold, that it would feel current. And even on Friday and Saturday nights, we did full-on dance shows live from clubs, because there's a lot of dance clubs in Montreal. If you pull back on that and go, skip the rotations for just a second, you have a CHR radio station in presentation, you have a CHR radio station in jocks, you have the CHR radio station all over the clubs live, and in all of that you would ever want to think about. Now you're going to go, well, okay, well, what did that do? Well, we had a 20 share. Let me say that again. We had a 20 share. I'm not bragging about the 20 share, I'm just throwing it out there. Everything I just described. And number one in every demo that one could ever think of. You can make up some weird demo like 14.5 to 59 and we'd still be number one. It was super, super successful doing what I'm about to show you. Not exactly, but I'm going to go through the concept because I don't remember 100% exactly what I did. You know, I didn't say the clocks or anything, but I'm going to be really, really close and we'll talk it through. And that's what this lesson is going to be about. One of the other things that enters into this is young people today, because young people today, most of their listening is on a phone or a computer or TV or something. It's not the radio as we know it. So it's an audience that little by little we've been losing, and that is probably not going to stop. So that sort of enters into this too for this lesson of thinking is, can you actually get people under the age of 27? If you're going to be a CHR playing current music and spinning them, is that actually wise to do? You know, or should you build it in a different way? Because you got a better shot of getting a 35-year-old than you do a 25-year-old. And again, I don't think that's going to change. I mean, the only other way that that would change would probably be, in my mind, and I don't really know the answer, but I think I know the starting point is, you'd have to take a good signaled FM radio station in a market, you know, ideally a large market, because then you would be successful with a smaller share. Like if you had a 2.5 share in Los Angeles, you know, you're going to be doing real well. And that is definitely doable with a big city where 2.5, share if you're in, I don't know, Peoria, Illinois, let's just say, you know, you're out of business. If you wanted to gamble with a big company, I think it would be really cool to take one of those signals and, you know, get rid of everybody in the building over the age of 30, you know, and just let the kids run the asylum and take the shot. If you had to have a GM or if you had to have a sales manager, you know, to actually, you know, do the business end of it, I would take them out of the building, get them an office somewhere out of the building, never let them enter the building. I just wouldn't let them in. I'd let them have zero say in the programming of the radio station. The PD would be God in that building, and there would be kids running the thing. You're probably going to have immense failure or immense success. There's probably going to be nowhere in between. But, you know, to me, it's worth the gamble, given where radio is going. But I know that's not going to happen, so let's move into the lesson and we'll go through this. You know, we'll start with some math, then we'll make some clocks, then we'll make some alternative clocks, and then we'll be done. I think our starting point is right here, and this is, you know, what we went through in the last lesson where I started to do the math of all this, and I decided to, you know, rather than go through it one by one, I would talk it through and just show you all of it at one time. You know, here's the typical 18 hours of a day. Oh, hang on a second here, I got 18. Made a mistake, huh? That's what happens when you cut and paste sometimes. Okay, 18 hours, there you go. Let's have some frame of reference, and I'm going to put that up at the top of the page. Typical CHR in the United States right now, they're turning the fastest songs over every hour and a third. Okay, hour and 20 minutes. That's pretty much what it comes out to. If you're an AC station, it's going to be somewhere between 3 hours and 5 hours. Somewhere in there. Urban AC, same thing, 3 to 5 hours. And those are strong radio stations in ratings. So, you know, that's another thing to consider. 3 to 5 hours, strong ratings. Okay? London CHRs, London, England, they're doing a little over 2 hours. So if you just look at CHRs, the London ones are slower. So our question is going to be, how slow can we slow it down to and still have it a CHR? And a lot of this is just guesswork. I think this is kind of around 2.5, somewhere under 3 hours, I think, is a good frame of reference for the songs to repeat if you're A's. And in order to do that, you know, that turns into, well, how many A's are you going to play? How many currents and that type of stuff are you going to play in a typical hour? That's our usual question. And we're going to get to that, but I'm kind of starting from the frame of reference point of I'm kind of thinking 50-50, somewhere in there, maybe even more gold than currents, which is a dramatic departure for most CHRs. So we're going to see if we're going to end up that way. But when I say, man, if I got an A song, if I got the cream of the crop, like if I got the new Ed Sheeran out right now, Bad Habits, great song, how fast should that thing be coming around? Should it be every hour and 20 minutes? No, I don't think so. I think you could handle that for a couple weeks, but you can't do that for a long period of time. I don't think. So I'm kind of thinking like 2.5 hours, somewhere in there. I'm going to leave it at this. Now, this is what I would do if I was programming a radio station. You never, ever know exactly what something's going to sound like. You just need a starting point. I'm going to start maybe being too old and then adjust downward toward current. I'm going to start out doing this the way I learned from Ed Budabaugh. Ed Budabaugh was the chief engineer at CKLW during the time when everybody raved about the sound of the radio station. Ed was like, one of those mad geniuses, and he did some amazing things that every radio station on the planet uses his stuff now. All of them. He invented 3-band processing, where you have 3 bands going at once, and each one has got different limiting and different processing on each of the bands. And so he invented that literally himself with tools and these little homemade gadget things, and stuck it in CKLW's line, and that was our audio processing, and nobody else in the world had that. Ed took that and put it into a 3-band, and then later he put it into a 5-band. And then Orban, the Orban company, basically, took that whole idea, and that's what everybody uses now, the 5-band processors. And who knows, maybe they're up to 7 by now. Ed had an interesting thing, as I was talking to him one day when he was out, setting the levels of everything overnight. And I said, well, how do you do that? He goes, well, what I do is, and this is key, I think, when we get into a audio sound lesson, I'll go through this with you again, but if you start with a little bit of audio processing, okay, and you start moving it up in increments, your ear can't really tell the difference of where it's going. And you can only do that for maybe half an hour, and then your ear is fried. So what Ed found out the easiest way to do it was to super overmodulate, take it way beyond where it's crystal clear, this doesn't sound good, and then just start turning in one shot, just start turning it down until your ears let up. And where your ears let up and go, that's much more pleasant, now you're really close to the mark. That's it. But if you go upward slowly, you can't find it. That's what I'm going to try to do here. That's the thinking. I'm going to try to be over oldies, over gold on this. And then I would listen to the radio station, for a few days and get a sense of the rotations and go, yeah, I got too much gold. I'll pull one out, or I'll put another one in. That's the thinking, and that's what we're going to do here. So 3 songs per hour of the A's. These are the cream of the crop, and I think this is pretty much going to encompass all of the good ones. Because like I just mentioned, I think once you start going beyond 8, the songs, they're so-so. Let me show you something else. Take a look at this. I went to 2017, the Billboard Hot 100. And I'm just trying to drive home these points of why I think the way I'm thinking, okay? Then you can follow along. And these are the top 100 songs of 2017. And when you look at the songs, now on the screen you can see we're in the 30s. Are these songs ones that, are going to hold up 15 years from now? 10 years from now? Do they hold up 4 years from now? If you went back, and you wanted to grab something from 2017, would any of these songs be what you'd want to grab? It's pretty interesting when you stare at this stuff. It really is. Now, some of these songs, like Pink and What About Us, some of these songs are very, very low because they're right at the end of the year where they're actually strong in the next year afterward. But the brunt aren't that way. If you look at the top, Shape of You, Ed Sheeran, Despacito, That's What I Like, Bruno Mars, and a few of the other songs. Imagine Dragons, Believer, Post Malone, Congratulations. Some of these songs are, they're strong, but as you start to go down, they drop off pretty fast. So let's go back to this and we'll continue on because we're building 13 songs here. And moving on to the B's, I was, do I have 1 B an hour? But I think, if you're going to give the illusion of being a current radio station, you got to play current music. You got to make it feel like you're in today more than another radio station. So I think 2 is appropriate. But with that in mind, I would want them to turn slow. I don't want them to be coming around 2.5, 3 hours. I'm taking this out to almost a 6-hour pop here. Okay, and in order to do that with 2 an hour, you need 11 songs in there in the category, but watch, if I put 6 in here, well, then it's 3 hours. So in order to get that number, you're going to need 11 songs. Can you find 11 Bs? Sure you can. All you'd have to do is basically move your list fairly slow when you're in the Bs. Okay, you put them in and you move them in and out fairly slow. Moving on down again to Hold the Illusion. And I got C's that have been on the list, songs that, they were new at one point and now they're still in the C's, moving up toward a B and an A. And C new songs. I was thinking about, gee, do I put them both in one category and try to packet them apart? So that was a thought. So that was what I was working with here. And then I sort of kind of thought, well, you know what, I'm not going to do that. So let's just take this right off the table, okay? So when it comes to C's, songs that, we have added as new songs a while back and they're still working their way up slowly, I thought a 9-hour rotation, basically they're coming around slow, more than enough. Considering an AC radio station doesn't even have these hardly. The new song and the C song and the B's, these three categories are combined into just one category. And it might only have maybe, 11 songs in it total. So, this is definitely leaning towards CHR, but it's definitely a slowed down CHR. And then there's new songs and, just stepping away and going, man, how fast do you want a new song to play? You could say, well, it should be slower than the C's. And that would be totally correct. That would be normally where I would probably go. But in thinking about what I'm trying to accomplish, again, basically it's a fake CHR. I don't think being slower is the right way to go. I would be more at ease, but I think a better way to go would be to actually play them faster, a new ad, a little bit faster than the C's, not that far from the B's. See, we got 6 hours for a B, 7-hour rotations for a new song, but I would be bearing a few things in mind when I did that. One is I am super picky at this point of any new songs I add, just because it's, cranking up the charts. I could care less. If I didn't think that song had a shot to make #1 and be an A, if I didn't think it could get there, I just ignore it. Or to put it in another way, looking back on that list of 2017, I don't want any song, I don't want to add any new song that is going to be on that list for the year after 30. I'm over dramatizing, but you get the idea. What I would do is I would turn them faster, I wouldn't have that many of them, and I would probably move them reasonably quick into the C's to slow them down. So it might be, there's a new ad, every 7 hours one week, 7 hours the next week, 7 hours the third week. Then I'm going to move them up into the C's and let them run there for a while, and then either move them up or get rid of it. Okay, now let's move on to recurrence. In this section, I'm looking at how fast they repeat on a daily basis, not on the hourly basis like up on the top. So it's there, but I'm going to sort of ignore it. So to me, when I say recurrent and I'm thinking in the context of what I'm trying to build, I would like it something to play today. Okay, so if it played at 8 o'clock in the morning, on Monday, it's going to play somewhere like, say, noon, 1, 2 on Tuesday. And then the day after that, it's going to be somewhere in afternoon drive. The day after that, it's going to be somewhere in nights, assuming it kept this pattern. And maybe it might even go longer. I don't think the audience will realize that it matters. It isn't like, oh my God, I don't hear the recurrence, because you would have played this a ton. One other thing with the recurrent with this radio station, the way I'm building it, I would leave a 2-month window for the recurrence. I would actually take it off and rest it completely for 2 months, and then have the computer system automatically throw it into the recurrence. Okay, if you wanted to keep it, some you may not want to keep. It may not hold up, over time. Then moving down, I would take Power Gold. This is really strong testing stuff. You're going to test your universe, or you're going to guess at what's super strong, or the stuff that you really like and you want to pound on your radio station, and you want to say to yourself, these are the Power Gold to me. Between 2021 and 2015, I'm thinking you're going to get maybe 50 of these, because 22 of from that same era, from 2021, 2019, you're going to be looking for a cream of the crop recurrence, and of which you're going to put 22 in here. Around that number, 22, 25, somewhere in there roughly, okay? So what's going to be left is a small list, and I think 50, somewhere in that range is going to be appropriate for these amount of years, because basically you're not dealing with 2021 and 2020. That's gone. You're really dealing with 19, 18, 17, 16, and 15. And maybe somewhere down the road, it might actually make this, go to only 16, and this is picking up at 15. As a matter of fact, as I'm looking at these numbers right now, And looking at these years, I actually think I'm actually going to do that. Okay, yeah, that seems a little bit better because you got basically you have 4 years here to pull from, and you're going to should be able to pull 20 good songs from each year, of which some of them might end up being in the other gold stuff. Some won't make it and all that. So okay, that seems probably appropriate, somewhere in this range. Might even go up to 60 songs here. And then another Power Gold category, 2015 to 2008. I think it's pretty difficult to go beyond 2008 with a CHR. You can do it, but it's difficult. As you start to go back farther and farther, starts to get smaller and smaller of what you can pull out of that top 100, out of that top 25. So if you look at 2015 to 2008 and count the years up, that's 8 years. If you just took like the typical 20 for each year, 8 times 20 is 160, but we're only using 125 because we know a lot of those songs are going to drop off. Let me show you this. It would probably look something along like this, roughly. That's my guess the way it would turn out if you decided to go into the 90s and 80s. And I think there are songs from the 90s and 80s that are just, they just go forever and they will fit, but they will be flavor type songs. They come around every once in a while. And that brings us to the last section, which is just plain gold. These have 7.5 days, a little under, to repeat. And I think you could find 200 of them. And basically you're working with all the years that matter. So I think that's roughly what these, this is going to be in here. That's what I'm thinking in my mind, what I'm going to put in there. And then this 80 songs, that's like the flavor stuff. That's stuff that, man, you don't want to hear it coming around all that often. It's once in a blue moon. And in a way, it's almost like the slower the better, really. If they're really strong songs, you could have as many as you can fit in here that would actually make sense. That's a big point. It's got to make sense. So just taking this, what do we have? Well, we have a core library of 232 songs. That's it. But you actually have a full library of 512, which is everything there. And we end up with 7 currents per hour and 6 golds per hour. And again, I'm counting a recurrent as a gold. So now let's go build this. The goal here is to build a CHR radio station that has more gold than a normal CHR. And we definitely want to give the illusion that we are a CHR and a very current-based radio station. To me, knowing that the top of the hour is going to fire, it's going to be some sort of a thing selling what we do, today's hits or whatever. Let's, actually do that. Let's actually make today's hits there. Let's do the A's. Now we're going to be doing 3 of them. Where would you put the other one? I mean, logically, you're going to try to balance these so you're not too far away from them. So I would say the next A would probably be, I don't know, maybe somewhere over in here. Let's make it 2 after the commercials. Again, we're going to have alternate hours. So, this isn't cast in stone. It'll be an hour. So we might do this hour and the next hour, it's a different type of hour. And then back to this. So we might have 2 hours and they're alternating A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, or there'll be 3 or 4 or 5 different ones. So again, we're just trying to maintain the illusion. So now we got a CHR and I just fired off an A and that's a really strong song. What do I want to do now? Well, let's do one of the C's. Okay, so we've had 2 currents and we got that current feel going. Let's do a Power Gold recent. So this is going to be within the last few years. So you just had a super strong A. You got an up-and-coming song on the C's, and in the C's, and then now you got a Power Gold here. And what should come after the Power Gold? I would do a strong gold because we got to get some gold in. Plus, since there's more of these than probably anything, the jock on the air has got something to talk about as opposed to the same stuff that he's always done a million times. Okay, then we go into commercials. I think I'm going to take a shot at coming out of the commercials with a recurrent on this clock. 2 currents. Now we need to kind of drop back. For a Power Gold, we can drop back for a gold. I think this might be good to drop back for a flavor gold. So now you have something out of the past. What do we play after something that just came out of the past that is turning, every 8 days, but it's a cool song. People would really like the song. That's why you're playing it. But, it doesn't come around very much. It's like, oh, wow, what was that? I haven't heard that in a while. What should be after that? Probably, an A or a B, but we've already used up the A, so let's throw a B in here. And let's drop back a little bit, but not too far. We'll do some Power Gold Old, which actually doesn't go back all that far, but they're super strong testing, and you know that. And now going into the commercials, because somebody's going to be able to talk about this song in front of the commercials if they choose to, which they probably should. Let's put a brand new song here. What do we need to do? What are we missing here? We got 3 A's, we're missing a B. Let's put a B there. So this probably should be something that's old. So let's just say a gold strong song, okay? It's not old, it's just a great gold song. Could be from any year that just wasn't power gold strength. And there's the hour. Lastly, alternate hours. Yikes, a lot of colors on here. Okay, well the first clock, this one here, clock number 1, that was what we just built. A balanced hour. And I tried to balance it by going from old to new and old to new and old to new, up and down, and give that illusion of being a current radio station while I was doing that. This is sort of a kind of the same thing, except it's just a mirror. Stuff is just sort of put in different places. I'm using the exact same elements. I'm just sort of moving them, and that's what you would do in alternate hour. You're playing the same stuff, you're just moving them around. A third alternate hour, and a different way of doing it, is trying to take a totally different tact with it. So what I did here was, I started off with an A, a tried and true hit song, right out of the ID, boom, it's there. And then I'm moving to one that's moving up the list, and then I'm moving to a recent power gold, and then finally I'm going to hit a gold. So that's the way this hour is. This one is I'm doing a tried and true recurrence, been there, it's even more tried and true than the A of the last hour. And then I'm going to a gold song, and then a B, and then we have the new song. Okay, in this hour, I'm actually going to make this feel a little bit more current in stretches and a little bit more gold in stretches. The stretches are longer in each of these, okay? That's what I'm going to try to do. Looking backwards, what we have here is we got an A, then the top of the hour hits, and I got a brand new song right off the top of the hour. So you're going to say you're a current radio station, and boom, here comes a brand new song, something that's only been out a few weeks. Hopefully it gives that illusion. Then I'm going to come right back with another A right after that. So this is a very current stretch. Then we're going to pop a gold, a strong gold, and then we're going to do a B. So I got 2 A's and a B and a new song in this stretch. Then we're going to hit commercials, and then we're going to do here recurrent and a recent power gold, then the other B, then a gold flavor. So this is one of those rare golds that come in every once in a blue moon. Then an A, and then a C. And again, a C could be a relatively newer song. It's been on a while, or it's been on a long while because it's coming down the list. It's already been an A and a B, and now it's C just before it disappears. So there we go. This is a hot clock. This is the original one, and then 2 alternatives with a different reasoning for them. I think maybe on the next lesson I'm going to do at least 1 clock for each day part that it could be, just to give you an idea of that, and that'll definitely be a lesson for somebody who has not programmed before. And maybe a refresher if you're a PD now. That's it for the lesson today. Hope you enjoyed it and hope you got something out of it. Again, this was a different type of lesson just to show you an alternative way of thinking about CHRs and basically a station that leans current. You don't have to be as current as other stations to actually have a feel that you're pretty current. You can actually have a fair amount of gold if you do the gold correctly, and that's what I wanted to get across to you in this lesson. So as always, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe and all of the usual YouTube stuff. Until the next lesson, see ya!